The Big Footy Port Adelaide podcast is proudly sponsored by New Vision.
My team, kinda power. I love the power. I love the power.
Hey everyone, I am Macca 19 and this is the Big Footy Port Adelaide podcast coming to you live once again on Port Fan Radio, a fan-driven online radio station dedicated to the Port Adelaide Footy Club. Back this week from his jaunt interstate, we've got Fishing Rick. How are you, buddy?
Mate, I'm tanned, relaxed, the water was clear, perfect, and it's great to see that Pittard Nation is taking over the globe. It's just almost bringing a tear to my eye, Macca.
This is bigger than Lynn Sanity, I have to say.
Pittard Nation is just amazing. I told you all the way along, when all the doubters were around, he is the halfback flanker that we needed to have, and he's delivering. But I'll take it further. I've noticed something else this week, which I haven't noticed before. So I think Pittard Nation is actually expanding.
No, it is. Definitely is.
It is.
It is. It's massive. And look, back on the podcast again. We haven't spoken to her for a while. It's the return of Portia.
Hello.
Hi.
We going well?
Well, yeah. One thing with regards to the Pittard Nation, I was a little confused because I was at the game on Saturday and I thought that was Adam Kingsley the way he was playing. He was actually pretty precise and deliberate with what he was doing. So, was that Pittard?
Come on. He can't even...
Are you really...
That is disgraceful. No offence to Adam, but he is far, far inferior to Jasper Pittard. I can't believe you're even...
Oh, come on. Like Adam Kingsley's got, the pre-season Michael Tuck medal. You know, you can't knock that. He's got an edge on Pittard so far.
Mate, you're trying to be controversial from the start, Portia. Stop talking.
Okay.
I can't believe what I'm hearing here. This is ridiculous.
Outrageous.
I didn't see one handball over the head or blind kick or any bomb scare moments.
That's true. I did say Adam Kingsley did play a good game, so, you know.
And what about the spoiling? I mean, the spoiling was just amazing. He hardly ever got out-positioned by his opponent and won the one-on-one contests, and he was the nullifier. Maybe that will need to be his new name.
Oh, look, I think that he did really well, but there was that one moment in the last quarter, which I think everyone's seen on the highlights, where what did he do? He completely stuffed it, trying to play on, but he did tackle and got it back off Lindsay Thomas, wasn't it? That little play in the last quarter. Yeah, well, come on. I mean, he got it back. That's great. But he still had to have that moment where you just go, what were you thinking? But he did redeem it instantly, so that's okay. That's why it was a really good game.
It was fast followed by fantastic. It was wonderful.
Yeah. You know, it was the full roller coaster. It was absolutely, it was a Pittard moment, let's face it. I think in, 10 years' time, if we wanted to find Pittard's play style, you'd probably just look at that highlight and go, yeah, that's Pittard. Scare everyone.
I'd agree with that.
Turn out okay.
That's it. Well, look, let's do a love and hate for this week. Rick, do you want to give us your love and hate, mate?
Yes, buddy. I loved the hard hit of Adelaide. I thought the physicality of the contest overall was fantastic by both teams, and especially our boys. And I just think the players probably aren't appreciating it, but the first 3 weeks, the physicality has just been huge in all the games. And our boys are now men and mature enough to be able to withstand the battles of the body contact, and are actually now starting to win some of those battles, and I reckon it's fantastic.
I totally agree with that. I thought that Adelaide played a really good game, but I think what really stood out for me with the defence this game is that we had a lot of good individual contributors, but there wasn't one player that you'd say, oh, look, that everything's being set up for him. And so I don't think anyone in the defence played badly at all. It was really a fantastic game across the board. I was quite impressed, actually. Yeah. But Adelade's physicality was certainly a feature. I think there could have been more physicality across the board, but it was still pretty good.
And what did you guys think of that actual hit? Was it on White?
Huge. Right. Yeah,
right.
Sam Wright.
Yeah.
It was massive. I loved it. I've been waiting. Yeah. I've been itching for Bobby to do something like that for about, 7 years now. And he finally did, and he delivered. It was huge.
It's a shame he's not Samoan, because we could have called it the Samoan Crunch. But yeah, I'm with you. It was a good thing that, and I would have been appalled if he got suspended, because it was just a fair collision by both players going hard at the ball, and that's what I mean. You got to take your hat off to the North Melbourne players too, because I tell you what, they were pretty fierce at the contest. There was no shirking by either team every night, and I think that's going to put our players in good stead for the upcoming weeks, though, because if we can get through this tough period and patch that we've experienced, we're going to come out better for it. Excuse my phone. I'll just mute that right now. I'm not cracking beer bottles.
Are you sure?
No.
I promise. And my hate is I'm depressed that Ollie Wines got injured, because I actually thought that he was superhuman. And there was he's just crushed my faith that there are actually superheroes do exist, because he was like Superman, this kid. Came in AFL level from the start, dominated, looked impenetrable to physical contact. He was just amazing, and now he's got this little dislocated bone in his wrist. Very unlucky, and we're going to miss him greatly.
No doubt. Yeah,
Yeah, look,
absolutely.
he's a huge out, no doubt.
Oh, huge out. And look, I thought he would play till he was 41 and play 475 games straight without missing a game, to be honest. But it's a very sad day. But look, he'll be back and bigger and stronger than ever. That's for sure.
Yeah, hope so.
Portia, what about your love and hate this week?
I guess my love is that, I suppose, for the first time I joined not the Pittard bandwagon, but the Broadbent bandwagon, which is the one I definitely haven't been on in the past. I've usually been thinking, yeah, he's all right, but not what everyone's made him out to be. But I thought this game in the first half, he was sensational. He was exactly where he needed to be. And when I watch football, I try and look out for the key players. And every time I saw a key play in that quarter, the first quarter particularly, Broadbent was there, and he was just the crucial difference. It was really astounding football from him. Really loved seeing that. And but again, that comes down to being part of a fantastic defence. If I can have another love, it was just basically the form of Nathan Krakouer on his return to the side. Reminded me, we had those when he originally started with Port Adelaide, we had those first 10 games that Krakouer played, and they were really good because he just ran and ran and ran and ran, and he was just super accountable. He got tired, and he never really found that same touch after that first run. But we've seen it again. He's back, and he's matured, and he's wiser, but he's still got that run, and he's still got that tenacity, which I really loved seeing. So I've got two loves this week, and I suppose this is the sort of game that you can really justify that. It was a really good result. You sort of stole my thunder there a little bit, Portia, because I was actually going to say that Jasper and Broady have become sort of the dynamic duo of the Port Adelaide backlines, haven't they? They're sort of countering each other. When one person gets blanketed a little bit with the defensive lockdown forward, the other one's providing the run and carry, and then they seem to be swapping that role perfectly, which is great for us. And I agree, Broadbent's first quarter was amazing. He was best on ground in that first quarter. Yeah, and I'd also just add, I agree with you, Rick, and it's really important for us, because what I was thinking about in relation to Pittard was that there's been comparisons between the role that we sort of foresaw Pittard eventually playing being like the Peter Burgoyne in defence role. But the main flaw of the Peter Burgoyne in defence role is that we only had one of him. We didn't have anyone else that we could rely on to be about as good at clearing the ball from defence. And so we became extremely dependent, which meant that when he was shut down, we lost games, we looked terrible. Because we have Pittard and Broadbent actually sharing the duties, not one dominant and one lesser, but they're actually pretty much on the same level. That is hugely important for us, because that gives us two really good attacking options who can be on either flank or doubling up occasionally, and it makes it much, much harder for defences to counter us when we're on the rebound. It's a really good setup for us if we can keep that going and they both keep form.
Yeah, good call. I like that.
Yeah. As far as hate, I really don't feel great about saying this one, but because he's been a really great player. Chad Wingard, you can see he's got a knee injury. You can see he's not ready to play, and I've been thinking about this a bit too much probably, so I'll just explain what I'm thinking here. So a number of times this weekend we saw Chad Wingard approach a contest, and you sort of think, it's Chad Wingard, he's going to leap up at the back of the pack, but he didn't get off the ground. or he's going to do this, and he just didn't have the agility to do it because his legs stuffed. And I kind of wonder if it's a moment that like people go through in their careers, footballers go through in their careers, where they are injured briefly and they have to learn how to play football without an exceptional talent, which there are any number of players in the AFL that have to learn how to do that. I mean, Tom Logan is a classic example of that. He had to learn to still be useful even when he doesn't have a special trick up his sleeve. And I really feel that we could see with Chad Wingard, he's so reliant on his tricks. And he's so used to having ready access to them that when he doesn't, he just really struggles, and he's not learnt how to not use them. And so I was disappointed in his game, but understanding of it. And it kind of reminded me of Stewart Jew back in the day, when he was in back 2001, when he was pretty much given free rein to do what he wanted, and he was kicking long kicks all the time. It was really great. But then he was sort of put in defence a bit more, and, we started not seeing the long kicks so much. But that was really good because it taught him to develop other weapons like accuracy, not just length, and how to play differently. Or someone like Sean Burgoyne starting in the back line. And I think we're seeing that a little bit with Chad Wingard, and it's sort of why he's being stuck up forward so much. But I don't know, it's a lesson he needs to learn, and this is right now that he's learning it. But I was a little bit disappointed in some respects because, I don't know, I guess I had too high an image for Chad Wingard as being like the supermensch sort of thing, or the ubermensch, isn't it, sort of player. I think that was really the closest I came to a hate, apart from being elbowed in the side by an angry North Melbourne supporter on the way to the trains, but that was all.
I'd challenge you on that one, though, Portia, because in the beginning I thought, maybe Chad's injured, something's not right. But as the game wore on, and I've noticed this with Chad for the first 3 rounds, if you look at his intensity at the contest and at the man at the contest, it's right up there, and his forward pressure has been excellent. So I think what's happening is they're maybe keeping him out of the play more from an injury management perspective, more so than he's injured. Because when you do watch him off the ball, he's definitely working hard, and to me, he looks 100% fit, and he's chasing really hard. I just think he's been kept out of the play maybe a little bit too much at this point in time.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, for me, the flaws are certainly not with his play off the ball, because he's pretty persistent, but he was missing a little something, and he didn't have the leap. That was really the main absence, I think, and he's pretty reliant on that.
There's no doubt he's not at his peak, but I still thought he was pretty valuable out there on Saturday.
Yeah, but in a side that played as well as that, I guess this is one of the few times I would actually say that Chad Wingard was probably in the bottom half of players. It's not often I'd say that, but I would comfortably say that this week.
That's fair enough. Look, my love this week is, quite simply, it's got to be winning a close one against our bogey team at our bogey ground. We've only beaten North Melbourne 7 times in history. And I think we've only won something like 4 or 5 out of our last 30 games at Etihad Stadium as well. So, I don't know, it was just a nice bit of karma parmigiana after some recent results against them away from home. First time we've beaten them away from home since 2008. We had that ridiculous free kick game in Tassie a couple of years ago. Last year we were pretty unlucky with players pulling their hamstring running into an open goal, and it was just great to get one over North, I think.
I totally agree. I think that at the game there was very much a feeling, I think even among the Port fans and the North fans, that this game was very much off script for what we've all seen previously. The number of calls for 50 metres, and the number of legitimate free kicks that we actually got paid. Like, to people like Jay Schultz, who never gets free kicks paid for him, he's suddenly getting free kicks left, right and centre. It was just astounding to see, I don't know, umpiring for some reason being on our side, and that gave this game an extra edge because I'm just not used to seeing that, and you always expect it to turn the wrong way, but it didn't. It was actually pretty solid across the board. We actually had a couple of gimmies, if anything, but then again, so did North Melbourne. But you could just sense that they were expecting, I don't know, they were expecting for an umpire to get them back in the game, in the crowd. Anyway, they were expecting it, and it was just really amazing that it didn't happen. So I don't know if it's that we were cleaner than usual or if we just got lucky with a early season interpretation on a fast ground. I'm not sure. But either way, it was that aspect was certainly interesting. But yeah, beating North Melbourne is absolutely fantastic. I hope it happens again in my lifetime.
It was awesome. Who cares? I don't care if we got a good ride with the umpires. We're due a good ride with the umpires. And I don't think it was a good ride with the umpires anyway. I think it was about even Stevens, but
I thought it was pretty
but
even. Yeah.
for Port, that's a good ride though. Like to actually get paid the free kicks that are there. That's pretty good. I'm pretty happy. I mean, if they happen every week, I'd be excited.
You mentioned why doesn't Jay Schultz get many free kicks? Because this is what happens when he gets 3 free kicks.
Yeah, true.
It's bloody front page news, and there's this media furor that he's got a couple of free kicks, which he deserved.
Maybe he should change his name to Matty Lloyd or something.
That's it.
Yeah, well, Triby's still going on about 2 years ago, 38-15.
Yeah.
Never forget.
Oh, dear.
Look, my hate this week is the fact that some of our supporters still don't seem to accept Kane Mitchell as one of our own. I was absolutely stoked that he kicked the sealer on Saturday night, and look, I thought he had a very accomplished game out there. You know, he shut down Gibson. Had a big part to play in that last quarter, I thought. I'm not sure where the criticisms came from. All I can think of is people blaming him for some of Thomas's goals in the last quarter, but when you watch the replay, he was only covering for a couple of his teammates who decided to go ball watching and tried his best to cover Thomas, but just couldn't do it. I mean, as I said on the forum, I think back pocket's probably the last place I'd expect to see Kane Mitchell. But for him to kick the winner or the sealer, I thought it was a fantastic story.
Look, I'm not the greatest Kane Mitchell fan, but I thought this week he was actually pretty good. He's not an amazing player and he does have his limitations, but we knew that selecting him, so you just accept it, really. I kind of think that when it comes to the former players that people get preconceptions and they go by them for the most part, but you really need to be open to people to change because, people change all the time. We might not think we do, but we do. And certainly I thought that was a pretty decent game from Kane Mitchell. I certainly think that the ground and the track suited him. It was pretty much ideal for him to play a pretty fast running game on a nice surface. But for that week, this week has been really good.
Well, obviously, I didn't get to see the game live, and so I saw a couple of comments when I got back, waiting for bloody AFL Live Pass to upload the game, which took forever. And on the forum, all I saw was Mitchell and Westhoff get smashed, and so I watched the game, with that view to see how bad they were. But I thought both players actually were pretty good, and I was quite surprised with the difference between what people were saying and what I thought was more of reality.
I think people just need to accept that Mitchell's, he's near our best 22. He's not far off it. If everyone's fit, he's probably 24th, 25th on the list. So he's going to get games. He's going to get a lot of games because we're never going to have our absolute best 22 out on the park every week. He's
just the new Tom Logan, pretty much. He's you must be this good to play. Yeah.
He's a bit faster than Tommy. Maybe not.
No, I know, but I mean, sort of in terms of position on the list. In that, if you're playing Tom Logan, it means that no one else has played well enough to get a game. So deal with it. You know
what you're going to get.
Yeah,
I just reckon embrace it because he's a player. It's clear the coaching staff love him. I reckon. I reckon he might become a player where he becomes almost a bit of a cult hero.
Alex Hale tweeted in for you just a while ago, Portia, how good was Paddy? Apart from his ruck work, his disposal was as good as anyone else going around.
Yeah, look, I thought he played. I was mostly, I've got to say, I had a big focus on the centre square, and I think we really suffered for only playing one ruckman in some respects. We got away with it, which is good, but around the ground, he was really solid, and I suppose that's really why we recruited Paddy, is because we know he can be an around the ground ruckman as well as taking a few taps. So in the ideal situation, if we have Lobby and Ryder, then the resting ruckman can still be a valuable contributor to rebound and interception and whatever else there might be. So when we got Ryder, I don't think we picked him with the intention that he'd be like a dominant ruckman that would win every tap. I don't think that was the expectation, but that he'd be good enough and he'd be useful around the ground, which that's what we need. It's nice. I really miss Brendan Lade and Sean Burgoyne, just that wonderful connection they had, but most teams don't have that. Most teams don't. They don't have that excellent ruck to an excellent midfielder. Most premiership sides have just got a good ruckman. They don't have an amazing ruckman. They've got a good ruckman, and that's what Ryder is. He's just solid. He's going to be good enough for us to play finals for the next, 5 years. He'll be good enough, and so will Lobby. We don't need a superstar ruckman. If we've got two solid ones that can pair up and play off each other, and if we can bring in Redden as an extra option, I suppose as more of a pure ruckman when we need him, then that's everything we need as far as rucks, I think. It'd be nice to have an extra because someone always goes out with a knee, but Ryder did exactly what we recruited him for, I feel, and that was a really good game to see from him. It was good. And it's good to know that he can rebound like the rest of the Essendon players can.
What do you reckon, Rick?
I reckon in his short history, that was his best game with us so far. It was great to see. I thought he was a bit underwhelming in the first two rounds, so maybe he was a little bit distracted. And Goldstein was in cracking form, and he really took it up to Goldstein with the fact that at least he made him challenge his ruck work, so he just didn't get clean usage of the ruck contest the whole time compared to what he had in a few other weeks. So I was very happy with what he did, and I said last week, Portia, I think the thing I've probably taken Lobie for granted with is his pressure post-ruck work around the contest, where he's able to hold the ball in and create that extra stoppage for our midfielders. And I think that's where we've really been hurt this year with Lobie going down. And I guess Paddy needs to get that engine up to be able to at least create that same competitiveness post the ruck tap.
I thought the Ryder-Goldstein battle lived up to expectations. I mean, Goldie ended up with more hit-outs, but I thought Ryder definitely had better impact. He was able to jump all over Goldstein. And look, especially at the centre stoppages where we've struggled the last 2 weeks, I think his ability to jump over Goldstein and put him off really led to us winning a significant amount of those centre stoppages, which I thought was fantastic. And whilst Goldie had maybe the better of Ryder around the ground, where it was more of a wrestle, he's obviously a lot stronger. I thought Ryder was a huge reason why we won that game.
I kind of think that in the ruck duel, Ryder was primarily acting as a disruptor rather than a negator, so it wasn't about making sure that the ball came to ground or got locked in or something, but just that it didn't go exactly where Goldstein wanted. I think that if I was putting up against the same ruckman, for example, in a hypothetical, I think that Goldstein, and we saw it a bit, Goldstein had more perfect ruck clearances. So a lot of the time, when he did get it, which was not all the time, but when he did get it, he actually got it directly to a North Melbourne player rather than, Ryder more sort of hitting it towards the ground and it's the Port player being able to take advantage of it. It's a bit of a different situation, I think, there. But I think that, Goldstein was well held in the end. Just one other thing on Ryder while we're talking about him. I just want to get this in. I'm wondering if his form this week also has to do with his familiarity with the ground. So the last 2 weeks we had Fremantle out in the wind, Adelaide Oval, pretty windy, and then inside in a nice ground that he's very familiar with as an Essendon player. I'm just wondering if that familiarity was part of it, or if he just actually prefers that kind of track. If he prefers that kind of track, that's actually really good for us because I think Lobby is much better outdoors. So that could be another part of the partnership that could work out really well for us.
I think they were saying too, like with the Freo game, it was his first game where he's actually come up and rucked a full game against Sandilands. So it was a bit of a different challenge for him, sort of a new experience.
Yes, yeah.
But I like that line of thinking. It is. I never thought of it from that way. So it is it would be a more familiar environment for him. So it would make sense.
But also, as the type of player he is, I mean, that fast track and, no rain, no real wind, that's pretty much suits his game perfectly.
Well, look, it was round 3. It was Port versus North Melbourne at Etihad Stadium in front of a pretty dismal crowd of just 22,000 people.
Yeah.
Which was pretty shocking. Apparently, it came up on the scoreboard that only 8,000 North Melbourne members turned up, which is pretty pathetic, really. But
I believe it.
Yeah, well, that's it. Port came away with a fantastic 8-point victory, 17 goals, 11 to 16 goals, 9. Schultz was the star up forward with 4 goals, with 3 goals each to Ebert and White and 2 to Monfries. Portia, considering you were at the game, do you want to give us a quick rundown of what happened out there?
Not particularly, but I'll give it a crack. Pretty much... it's just a tight tussle the whole way through. Port had the dominance, I thought, early, but we were not really racking it up as well as we could have on the scoreboard. And for the first half, I thought we kind of controlled the game, but just weren't capitalising, which is why North Melbourne was so close. Third quarter and fourth quarter, obviously North Melbourne are a bit more in it. And the crowd did come alive when they were within a goal of us. They were certainly suddenly appeared at that point because they're a very quiet crowd. I'm not used to that from North Melbourne. But yeah, and then obviously we just hung in there in the end. There was a bit of back and forth, but I honestly don't think there was a point at which I was not confident we could win. Even when North took the lead with Lindsay Thomas in the last quarter, it still felt very much open and as if anything could happen. I think that kind of sums up the game. But obviously, you can do a much better actual summary of the game, Macca, if you'd like to. Please do.
No, yours was fantastic. Where do you think, guys, we improved from our first 2 rounds?
Quality of opponent.
Yep.
I think that's a huge part of it. And also, I just feel like the players are a bit more focused on what they're doing right now. I think the first round, the way we played, it just seemed like we didn't realise the regular season had started yet. And sometimes you get that. It wouldn't be the first top 4 side to start a season, not in great form, because you're thinking more about the other end of the season, but you still do actually have to win the games to get to that. But I think that was the main difference, is just the quality of the opponent. Though North Melbourne, I wouldn't say they had quality on every line, not like Sydney and not like Fremantle. I'd say that there's a couple of areas where they're pretty dodgy. They're still playing Frito, and Frito's a good trier, but if he's in the side, then they're not that good. I think that was
he's their Tom Logan.
Of it. Yeah, he's their Tom Logan, exactly right. I like him as a player, but I like Tom Logan as a player. But you're right, they're kind of equivalent in that respect. I think that was most of it, but I think just gradually getting to work better and a bit of energy injection from someone like Krakouer and, of course, Archie in the last quarter. I think that was a little bit of an edge for us that might have won us today.
I'm with Portia. I actually put it down to quality opponent as well. It was sort of like we ran out with the sword held up to the sky and we yelled out charge, and that was the game. I mean, it was a high intensity game, and the people that came on the boards and Facebook and were saying that North Melbourne will be a good matchup because they'll play the similar attacking game. I think that did work to our advantage compared to the lockdown Freo and Sydney. For me, I guess there was still a bit of a concern about our midfield. Our defence, again, held up strongly, and especially with our rebounding defenders. But, there was a fair portion of that third quarter there where all our prime ball movers just sort of disappeared from the start of the third through to probably close to the end of that quarter. And against those better sides, you get punished if you lose your prime movers like that. And so I still think the team has some work they have to improve on.
Look, I thought, where do we improve from our first 2 rounds? I thought our forward structure was well improved. I thought we showed really good form by our small forwards, and I mentioned them in the preview, their importance and how they had such a big game against them last year, but we weren't able to get across the line. I thought, once again on Saturday night, they really ran rings around their opponents. It was great that Schultz was able to get into the game more. That was by far his best game so far this season. I really liked our midfield as well, and I do understand and agree with you, Rick, that third quarter. And that's something that we've struggled with, especially last year as well, especially in that final minor round Freo game where we just saw our midfield sort of break and really struggled to find the ball and get those clearances that we needed. But I thought it was great that we were able to turn it around and still lead at three-quarter time. I thought that was important. And in the end, we won the clearances and the tackles. I thought we worked a lot harder at the stoppages to win the ball. And also I thought we were better as a team outfit as opposed to just a group of individuals out there, which I kind of felt against Sydney that was the way it was going.
True.
One stat which I really like is against Brisbane the week before, North Melbourne took 15 contested marks. We kept them to 0 on the weekend, which I think, considering the the size and the strengths of their forward line with Petrie and Brown and Waite, to keep them to no contested marks was a fantastic effort.
I'm going to argue about statistics now. Sorry.
Okay. No, that's all right. I'll explain my point a bit better in a minute.
Yeah, well, for me, I mean, no contested marks is great, but it wasn't a contested game for the most part. There wasn't a lot of it there because it is such a fast ground and because we didn't play real tight, certainly at the forward line and the back line, which is where you'd mostly take your contested marks. I don't know. I think it just wasn't. I don't know that it was necessarily that we specifically shut down North Melbourne more than Brisbane did, but it was just a different game and a different ground, wasn't it? I don't know. I don't think contested marks really says all that much necessarily. Yeah, yeah. I'm done.
It's not the contested marks itself. It's more the fact that I thought that our defence. It was almost like watching us play in 2002, 2004 again, where we had that real team defence going. We had guys like Pittard and Jonas and Broadbent dropping back in front, just like Montgomery and Chad Corns used to do all the time. And they were able to shut down, I thought, a lot of North Melbourne's leads and were just able to kill the ball, which I thought was important.
Yeah, I think that when I was watching the ground, and they're playing it like most games get played these days, where they don't fill the whole overlay, just basically play within a radius of wherever the ball is. And that sort of game, particularly in a ground where you're expecting fast play, and in fact we actually set up for fast play by only having one ruckman, you really are not going to get a huge amount of contested marks because there's space to run into all the time. I really think it comes down to the ground and how it was played and the matchups more than the deliberate effort. But I agree absolutely that we played well as a defence. There's no doubt, and I'm sure that someone like Drew Petrie would have loved to take contested marks, but like Ben Brown, he was actually quite surprising, but he didn't need to take contested marks. He just was taking marks.
Yeah, no, that's a fair call. What do you reckon, Rick?
I do like that team orientated observation, Macca. I did feel like the last 2 weeks before we seem to be playing, waiting for someone to come up with a cameo to break the game open, whereas, Saturday night, it didn't seem like that was the case. Everyone was just doing their team part, and so I would agree with that. I think that's a good observation on the difference between the first two and this week. But again, I'll just go back to, I do agree with Portia. I think if we were up against Sydney or Freo, I'm not convinced that, well, maybe Freo, because we're a bit unlucky there, but definitely our performance against Sydney, I don't think if we played like that, we still would have won. We really need to take a look at our structures and everything with that better side. And I guess Hawthorn's going to be our test this week, which we'll talk about on Thursday.
Just on the team play thing, though, there was one difference that I did notice between this week and Sydney, was that, and you'll be pleased with this one, Rick, it's a positive Jasper Pittard moment, which was against Sydney. I very distinctly recall one time Pittard going for the switch, and then they show the up the ground field, and no one's bothered to run across to make it an option. So that is terrible, because what should be happening is that you Broadbent or you Pittard or whoever in defence that's trying to make a play and that's clear they're going to switch, then every player up the field should be thinking, where do I need to be, and start running to position and create an option. And against Sydney, we didn't see that. I felt that was something where we were missing, and I guess it's probably one of the areas. It's been hinted that Ken Hinkley during the week gave people a few pretty stern words, and I think that was probably part of it. And I think this week we're really good at it. When we went to switch, people upfield actually got in position to actually make that worthwhile. So that was I think that was a big improvement from Sydney, and certainly I think that's where we lost it last week. The team playing for each other, and taking the lead from someone that's got the ball.
You might be able to answer this, Portia, because you're at the game. I'm going to ignore I'm not ignoring him because I'm actually bringing up his name, but he's saying we've got short memories about the number of fans going to a game. I think Al might be a bit grumpy tonight, Macca, but Alex has pointed out Alex has got a good point.
Well, it's true. We did.
I've got to say that was not the worst attended North Melbourne game I've been to. I was at, I think it was in 2002 or something, the North Melbourne versus Port Adelaide game at the SCG. On Reconciliation Day, when everyone in Sydney was walking across the bridge for Aboriginal reconciliation, and I reckon there was 7,000 people there. So as North Melbourne crowds versus Port Adelaide go, this was actually a pretty good crowd, and I suppose in that respect we should actually say, yeah, good on you, North Melbourne, but I did wonder if we should have brought over the tarps for them.
Has Travis Boak played himself into form? That's what Alex Hale wants to know. And was he tagged at the game? Because Boakey did come into it in the last quarter, but the first 2.5 he was pretty quiet.
Look, I'm not really all that good at watching the midfield things unless it's on the TV, so Macca might have more of an idea there. But I think Boak will suffer again with Wines out next week for sure.
I think it was really well held in the first sort of 2.5 quarters, as you said, Rick, and Robbie Gray as well. You can probably add him into that mix as well. But their last quarters were incredible, really. And look, hopefully that does play Travis Boak back into his best form. And look, I think Robbie Gray's had a really good start to the season as well, playing as that pure midfielder. But he was definitely down on Saturday night, but that last quarter was as good as any.
I think that one of the things that's important to keep in mind when the gold midfielders are being tagged is breaking their tags is not just about their own performance, but it's about us proving that we have other options that the opposition also need to man up on. And I think in that respect, this week would have helped Boak out a fair bit, just seeing that we do have some other options and other ways of getting the ball up the ground rather than necessarily relying on the skipper, because it means if you're over-relying on shutting down one player, you'll get killed. And we've been on the other end of that equation a number of times, certainly back when Port entered the AFL and we were trying to match up on, Harvey and again, North Melbourne against Brent Harvey and Anthony Stevens and all of that at once, said that you'd shut down one, but then, the next one would pop up. And so you'd have to have some measure to stop all of them, or at least restrict all of them, rather than just focus on one player like everyone does on Gary Ablett Jr. every week. And so I think that's a big part of it, just that team thing, providing other options, but also just helping Boakey to lose his tag. And I guess that's probably the area in the first 3 quarters where we definitely maybe could have done more. I just wonder how much comes down to the team We've got a new midfield coach, I guess, and we've got a new ruckman, and everyone needs to learn how they all play together. So I guess that's part of it as well.
I think the important thing is that we've got options, and we've had options for a little while now, but Boakey and Gray were well down in the first half, but, Ebert had a massive first half. He was incredible out there. Broady had a huge first half. Jasper Pittard had a huge first half. I thought Hamish Hartlett was really, really good as well. It's important for these other players to stand up, and I thought they did. And of course, Aaron Young, who possibly had a bit of a breakout game for him. And do we see him becoming a bit of a mainstay in the side now?
Look, hopefully. He's certainly going to be second-tier midfield for a while until he shows he can do that on a regular basis. But like you just mentioned, Ebert was fantastic. Hartley was pretty good, and it's those guys playing well that's going to make the tag on someone like Boak or Gray looser. So, but no, they did play really well. And Ebert, it was really great that he got that sort of a performance in his milestone game as well. That's just a really nice touch.
Yep.
Yeah, he had a huge game, Brett Ebert, and I thought Young was all right. What did you guys think of Krakouer? Did he add value to our side?
I thought he was fantastic.
Yep.
Yeah, I really loved his play because he just kept going. It was really good to see. Obviously, this is one thing that really occurred to me when I watched the singing of the song on the TV after the game, which was that Nathan Krakouer was in the middle again. And I guess I might have had a misconception about what that meant, being in the middle after a win. Like, I just always thought it was like a welcome to Port Adelaide thing. But this is the second time that Krakouer's been in there. And I guess it's almost kind of like a baptism, like it's a cleansing of sins, to be born again in the light of Alberton sort of thing. And I really feel that was kind of how Krakouer played. And he's playing like a desperate person, but with the maturity to know what he needs to do. I think we could expect some really... I think that he's gone through the ringer. I think we could expect him to just really be a fantastic player as a character. And in defence, it's all about character. I'm really excited about Nathan Krakouer being back, quite honestly. I've got huge raps on it, and I hope to see more of it, because I think that, look, it's one of the great football stories is when someone sort of loses their way and they come back having learnt from it. I very much relate to that personally. I'm really looking forward to seeing more Krak.
I tell you what, they've been smooth, the smoothest running team we'd have if we got Impey and Krakouer in the same side, because they both just look like natural ball running players, and with Pittard and Broadbent as well. My God, they'd be fantastic in that defensive setup.
Well, I guess you can't play them all in defence. So I guess the question I've got now is if you do play Impey and Krakouer, who of our current halfback flanker types would you actually try and convert into a quasi midfielder? Would it be Broadbent or Pittard maybe, or who? I mean, Pittard got a good goal on the weekend. Maybe Pittard.
I think you could rotate either Pittard or Broadbent. I think you could probably rotate Broadbent as a bit of an inside midfielder, and you could rotate Pittard as an outside winger, so to speak. Because we've trialled Broadbent as an inside midfielder in the past, and even in the pre-season when he was captain, and he's got that body size to be able to take the impact now. I don't think he's been convincing as an inside midfielder, but I think he could do it for short bursts and change-ups if we need to.
Would you consider using him in that option with Ollie Wines out?
I'd actually like to see if Andrew Moore isn't rubbed out for his aggressive, disgusting tactics towards umpires. I'd like to see Andrew Moore get first gig first, I think, and back him in. That was a joke, by the way.
Okay.
No one's laughing.
I'm laughing.
Oh, yeah?
Macca's laughing on the inside.
I am.
Where's the crickets? Yeah. What do you reckon, Macca? Would you agree with that?
I'd almost rather see Jonas move into the midfield.
Oh, interesting.
I think he could be that sort of new age tagger to take over from Kane Corns.
He's different to Kane though. Like he's got a bit of more physicality to him. I think. Not that I'm saying Kane's doesn't go in hard or anything, but I think that Jonas can probably throw his weight around a bit more than Kane.
Yeah.
Does he have the endurance?
I think so. He's played midfield before. He played midfield for Nord. He's played tagging roles in the past.
Oh yeah, who was it he shut down last year really well? Was it Hodge?
Murphy.
I'm not thinking Hodge or
and
Mitchell.
He's done the job on Steve Johnson. He's done the job on Hodge. In his first game, Hodge, I think he got Luke Hodge. So
there you go.
Yeah, I reckon I reckon he'd make it. He'd be a pretty good chance to make it as a tagger.
Interesting.
A full-time tagger. Plus, I think then you would be able to fit Impey and Krakouer in the same team. Plus, still have that real attacking halfback flank in Pittard and Broadbent. But you've also got that option there of if things aren't going right, you can still move Jonas down back. Yeah,
or vice versa. If the Jonas is not getting a good hold of his opponent, you can swap him in for one of the defenders that's accountable, like Impey, for example.
Yeah. No, Krakouer was great. I thought he had a fantastic game. His first attack of the ball was probably a little bit off, and I think that caused a goal. But outside of that, the thing that really impressed me was just how hard he went at the footy. I mean, there was a couple of occasions where he was almost kamikaze-like and throwing his body in, and it was even mentioned by the commentators on the TV that he was going 100%, and that's completely different to the Nathan Krakouer that we used to see back in the Choco Williams era. So, how long is he going to stay in the side this time round? I guess it depends on when Billy Frampton comes back and is fit. So, might be another 3 or 4 weeks. Does he stay in the side when Impey comes back? I'm not too sure. But look, I think there's a lot to like there with Nathan Krakouer, and he definitely deserves more of a go.
I definitely want to have a really good reason to drop him from the side right now.
I think there's no doubt he stays in the side this week because you look at Hawthorn's team and that they've got Brad Hill, they've got Hartung, they've got Luke Bruce, Sean Burgoyne, Puopolo, Rioli, Smith, who are all really, really quick. So we need Krakouer out there this week, I think.
Yep.
Brendan Archie, how did we see his game?
His handball. I'll let Rick go
buddy.
first.
Brendan Archie.
Our buddy, he was a ripper. I loved it. I thought his pressure and aggression was great, and I reckon everyone needs to get on board the Archie bandwagon. Even though I said, me and Timmy agreed last week that we probably wouldn't have played him, I was glad to see him play, and I thought he did great guns. And we spoke about his handballing during the week on the forums, and Ford dug out an old thread, I remember, and God, how good was it? Perfect.
Pinpoint. Yeah,
it was a good handball.
I think Brendan had a really good first game. It would have been nice if he'd been on a bit early, but if he might not have had the same impact. But you'll take a lot away from that. I don't know if he'll play next week. I guess he might, with Wines out, needing to cover or something. I don't know. But yeah, it was a really good first up go, and that handball is unique. Certainly at Port Adelaide, and I might even, if he can keep up that kind of handballing to space to someone on the run technique that he showed, and that he showed in highlights before. I mean, he could be unique in the AFL for that ability. I don't think I can think of any other player that would match that if he can do that consistently.
I think it's hard for a player, especially a first gamer, to come into that sort of game and make an impact. Normally they look a little bit lost out there, a little bit unsure of themselves, but he stood up under pressure and that was great.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't accumulate a massive amount of ball, but I thought
He didn't need to.
No, his inside 50 pressure was fantastic and really sort of continued on the work from Ollie Wines, who had 9 tackles in the game before he went off injured. And, he did the little 1%ers, the blocking and the harassing, which is what we wanted to see. And I was quite happy. I'm not sure if he's going to get a game or not this week, or if Kane and might push him out. And is Lobe going to be back this week, or is there still doubts over his
Still
return?
doubts, I think.
Yeah, so you think Andrew Moore, if he doesn't get reported, will probably be a bit of a lock to come back, I would imagine.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, he might be, but if Lobby is fit, then and we bring in a tall, then maybe we just drop Wines and then don't bring in a replacement for Wines directly. I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know.
Look, before we move on, I just want to give a big shout out to Matty White, who I thought had one of the best games I've seen him play. When you do an ankle and you're still able to kick 3 goals and run as fast as he did, I thought that was ridiculous out there on Saturday night.
Yeah, absolutely. He was really good. It's a shame in some respects that he played so well, because he played really well, but just not quite as well as a bunch of other players. So we haven't really talked about him much. And I think Ebert's a little bit in that same boat too. We were just so amazed by some of the performances we saw, but he was solid. He's been a solid player for us since he came over from Richmond, which, a lot better than Chris Naish when he came over from Richmond. He's just actually come to the side and been good from day one. So, no, it's been really good. I'm very, very pleased with his career at Port Adelaide, not just this game.
Cheer, cheer the black and the white, honour the Magpies day and by night, live that loyal...
Look, let's move on and talk about the Maggies. It was round 3 in the SANFL as well, and Port Adelaide played North Adelaide in a pretty early game at 12pm at Alberton on Saturday, and came away with a pretty comfortable 38-point win in front of a reasonably poor crowd.
Who was how did some of the players that we're talking about as potentially coming in, was there anyone there that sort of demanded a game in the near future, or just all played okay game?
Look, Paul Stewart, who's been on the fringe, I think a lot of people would like to see him in the side. He was probably best on ground. He had 31 touches, 13 marks, kicked a goal. He was everywhere in that sort of freewheeling, sort of mid-wingman role that he performed so well at utility. Andrew Moore was also very good, and he did what he does best at SANFL level, which is win the hard ball, kicked a couple of goals. But we might as well talk about it now. He pushed an umpire. It didn't look like much, but honestly, if in this day and age you can't understand that you're not allowed to touch umpires, I don't know where you go from there.
Yeah, but what was he doing? To me, like the replay, it sort of looked like he was trying to show the umpire what he was doing, but there was hardly any pressure in that movement. Surely that's not more than a slap on the wrist fine. It'd be ridiculous if he got rubbed out for that.
We'll see him get games.
This is one of the areas where I don't have an issue with him getting games, because it's really important to have that respect and that separation for umpires. I don't have an issue with it if he does get a game, and it hurts and it's really annoying, and certainly the timing of him actually potentially missing a game with Wines out is tragic in that respect. But I think it's one of those things where it's really important to have that clear distinction between umpires and everyone else, which is not to say umpires are being elevated, but just because that they're doing a different job and they need to be recognised, basically, like a piece of the furniture, that you don't stuff around with it, like you don't go up and, shake the point post, as we've seen, one time, was it Ben Hart that did it or something like that? Shaking the goalpost. You just don't do that sort of thing. I don't have a real issue with it. And if you say it was not really much in it, well, maybe there wasn't much in it, but he should know not to do it.
We've seen other players get suspended for doing a lot less to umpires over the last sort of 8 to 10 years, and it's just something that you're not allowed to touch an umpire. If you touch an umpire, you risk getting reported /suspended. So It was a stupid thing to do, particularly with Wines out of the side now. And look, Andrew Moore probably would have been odds on to come back into the team on that basis, I think. So if he misses out now, you know, Andrew Moore's still not a sure thing at AFL level. He shouldn't be doing this sort of thing.
Well, maybe it's because he's doing the sort of thing that we don't necessarily think he's mentally there for AFL level.
Well, fair point too. Well, Sammy Cahoon also had a very good game, playing across the half-back line. He picked up a lot of the ball. It's great to see him out there again. Darcy Byrne-Jones really impressed me with his hardness at the ball and the contest. You know, just like Nathan Krakouer did at AFL level, I thought Byrne-Jones did similar at the SANFL game, where he just threw himself into the contest, copped a couple of really big hits and just got up and kept on going, which was great.
So just back on Cahoon, obviously he's played a little bit of AFL, but as far as the role he's playing at the Magpies, would you say there's a certain position that they're grooming him for in doing that, or is it just that they want to get games in him while he develops?
I think at the moment they're just trying to get games and get him match fit again.
Yeah.
He's playing the same role that we saw him play back when he was fit a couple of years ago, that sort of loose halfback flanker, quarterback, I guess you'd call it, which is kind of what Broadbent's been doing.
Yeah.
So I assume that they're grooming him to be able to fill in if Broadbent either moves up the ground or is injured.
I'm kind of a little bit worried about that because we just talked about how, you know, we've got Broadbent and Pittard that can sort of do that role. And we'd also talk about how we've got, you know, Impey that's a good attacking defender, and we're now looking at Krakouer as well. Is it fair to Cahoon to be training him in a position where he's fifth on the depth chart?
But I think that's the position that he plays. And he's such a net. I mean, Timmy G summed it up perfectly the other day, where he said, you know, you've got this awful problem. You just know how to get the ball. You know, and he's coming back off a knee injury, and in his second game, and he's already racking up mid-20 possessions. I mean, the guy's just a ball magnet. It's amazing. And you know, it's so who knows where, and he's still young, so we don't have to pigeonhole him as a floating defender. I mean, he might take over Kane's role as a tagger.
Look, I'm not against that, but I'm just sort of wondering if at some level, you know, now that at the moment, like right now, and certainly for this year, it would appear pretty clear that he won't get a game in that position. But it's also useful for all players to have some versatility in the position they play, because number one, it gives them more chance of getting in the side, and number two, we don't know what injuries we're going to get, so we need to have, you know, at least some options for different positions. So I'm just wondering whether it's necessarily to his favour to have him playing in a role that he's played previously and he's already pretty comfortable with. He's been around for a couple of years now. Is this the time that we say, okay, now we need you to start playing more half forward so that we know that that's an option, or indeed playing as a tagger, even if it's at a SANFL level, playing as an accountable midfielder, rather than sort of racking up the touches necessarily. I'm just wondering if that's something that we should be doing for his development, or if there's a reason why we just keep him doing the same sort of thing he's doing because he's coming back from injury.
You're going to tread slowly in the beginning, I would imagine,
okay.
and just let him find his feet and something that he's comfortable with, and then you'll just take it from there. That's how I would play it out with Sammy. But then, what would I know?
Well, I don't know.
I sit on a squeaky chair.
Well, yeah.
Logan Austin was another one that I want to bring up. He played across the back line, sort of centre half back, full back, and he was outstanding. I mean, he's got definite AFL potential, in my opinion, and his partnership with Tommy Cleary was pretty good. I think Cleary, his opponent got away from him a little bit at times, but I mean, Austin, he's very similar to Trengove in that he's deceptively stronger than what he looks. He needs to build up his upper body a little bit, but he's got a massive kick on him. He reads the play super well. And I think he can definitely play AFL in the next couple of years.
I think that Logan Austin, I mean, it's one of the things you can see with, like, you know, draftees is whether they have the potential, like, not necessarily what their build is now, but if they had the potential to bulk up and be AFL standard. And, like, you take someone like Hugh Minson, like, he was never going to bulk up and be an AFL standard ruckman, really. He was just too narrow-shouldered, too frail in frame. It was just not going to work. He was not going to instantly turn into Will, because Will's built completely differently. But with Logan, I agree, you can definitely see that he's got that potential to, you know, be a real, I suppose we've used it before, a real guerrilla footballer, you know, really good KPP potentially. There is one thing I've got a query for out of that, though, Macca, is Tom Cleary performing not all that well. How do we feel about his development? Do we think he's progressing really? And do we sort of think that maybe he might be one of the players that ends up being shopped around a little bit towards the end of the year?
I thought he played well. His opponent kicked 3 goals, but he was a lot stronger than what Cleary is. I think Cleary's probably a player that might seek more game time elsewhere, just because has his development stalled. Maybe it has. Maybe it has. Maybe he does need to play AFL to get the best out of himself. And at the moment, with Homsch and Trengove and Carlisle absolute locks in the team, it's hard to see him breaking in and getting regular AFL time as a key defender. I mean, we've heard in the pre-season that they were trialling him. He was training with the midfield group, and his running numbers are outstanding, and he's as fit as any other player at the club. So maybe that's an option. But again, then he's well down the list of sort of midfield, on the depth rank chart as well. So
yeah, he's one player.
He's an awkward player at the moment. It's hard to see where he fits in, and I want him to fit in, but it's hard to see where he does.
I think that he's sort of in that peak trading range, which sounds a bit harsh to say at this point in the season, but he is, because he was pretty well rated as a junior, not fantastic, but well enough, Troy Chaplin quality junior. And it doesn't seem to have a place at Port Adelaide, but also I don't think we would lose too much if he left. I don't know that he's going to make it. I think he just doesn't get it. The way, when I've seen him play, he just doesn't seem to know what's going on to the extent that you would want a key position player to understand what's going on. And I don't know if you can teach that. So, yeah, hopefully he proves me wrong, because it's nice to have as many good options as possible. But Cleary, I don't know. I'd be interested in getting an update later on the year on how he's going, for sure. Definitely.
He's definitely one of those players we're talking about where you might want to trial him in different roles to see where he ends up. And I think he shows potential, but I'm not convinced that he's really a lockdown defender either, though.
No, I don't know what he is.
That's the $1 million question. Does he know what he is?
No, that's clear from how he plays.
But you'd have to think Paul Stewart would have to be pretty close to a game as well, especially if Andrew Moore gets rubbed out. I think he's been fantastic this pre-season and the starting season of the SANFL, and really deserves an opportunity.
Yeah.
He does.
Don't sound too convincing, guys.
I'm not enthused about him as a player. I think that, I don't think he should still be on the list. Because I think that he spent a long time. I think it's a little bit of Tom Cleary. I guess that's what I would think about it, is that he doesn't seem to, although he's a bit better than that, in that he tries pretty hard, but he doesn't seem to really get it to the same extent that, his peers do. And I just don't know. I think he's taken it easy in the past. Hopefully he's picked up his pace and he's doing a lot better, and, he's free of injury and everything else. And maybe he'll come in the side and be really good, but I just don't see it. I think he's, just because we drafted him and we drafted him fairly early, it doesn't mean he hasn't just turned into the next Tom Logan, and not dissing Tom Logan, but that he's someone that can perform extremely well at SANFL level, but at AFL level, he's just sort of on the outer. And maybe bring him in, but do you bring him in as a actual Wines replacement? Because if you're choosing between him and Moore for that sort of role, I'd choose Moore every week, and if I can't choose Moore, I'd be tempted to try a different setup anyway. I don't know. I'm not convinced. It'll take convincing for me. I'll be sceptical on this one for sure.
He's the perfect depth player. We kept him on for this exact reason, is that he's excellent at SANFL level. He's always going to be around the mark. Hopefully he can come in and do a job if we need him to.
Yeah, but if we need him to, then we're probably in a bad way. Like, we've had lots of injuries and it's going to be struggling to hold on to a position that we're in.
Look, we might leave it there for tonight. We've gone a little bit over time. But
Just
that's okay. So, look, once again, everyone listening out there, thank you for tuning into the Big Footy Port Adelaide podcast, and for tweeting in your questions as well. You can hear us again on Thursday night at 8 p.m, where we will preview 2 massive games for Port against Hawthorn and Norwood this week. Also, remember to tune in to Port Fan Radio Tuesday night, which is tomorrow at 8 p.m. for a brand new show called 1870 Hour, which is all about remembering those sort of classic moments and memories and footy players and matches that make the Port Adelaide Footy Club what it is.
Yes, exciting. Looking forward to it too. I might be a temporary guest for that one, Macca.
Wow.
There you go.
Unless
You are everywhere, Rick.
I am Rick everywhere. Not Eddie, but Rick everywhere.
He's like the community radio Eddie Maguire, yeah.
I was going to say Stephen Rowe, but look, Eddie Maguire works as well. So.
Oh, Stephen, come on. I mean, it's nice to have a go at Rick occasionally, but Stephen Rowe, that's a bit rough. You know. But as far as I'm aware, Rick's never actually accused umpires of being corrupt before, so, you know, I think that's a long-voted call. I
have a better choice of words.
Oh, okay.
No, that's not hard. Stephen Rowe's got about 4, so that's
No, this is a short term because Nick, one of the co-hosts, is overseas, I think. So I'll be filling in for Nick, unless you want to fill in for me, Macca.
No, all good, mate. I'm busy tomorrow.
You probably remember more than what I do, and you probably were only 8.
Probably, yep.
Because we're going to chat about 1989. And I guess don't forget as well, we've got that competition as well. That's still up for grabs. So if people subscribe to the mailing list for Port Fan Radio, they go in the draw to win those 2 lounge tickets to join and me and you and watch us eat and drink at Port v Richmond, and we might let them get one in if we're not too greedy.
How wonderful.
Yeah, but I am pretty
You're
thirsty,
really selling this, mate.
I know. I've seen you eat and drink. It's not pretty.
It's not pretty. No, it's not. It's horrible.
But it's exciting. When there's free alcohol on the line.
Free booze. Free
Let
food.
me at it.
Can't go wrong. Free Macca. Can't go wrong, mate.
That's right. Macca will talk Port for hours. And it's a good spot.
Look, I've got a final question, and it's to Portia.
Oh, good.
Are we ever going to see you on the forums again?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. It's, yeah, I got in that stupid little argument towards the end, and in discussion, private message, it was sort of pointed out to me that there's a lot of people in the world that are stupid and don't want to change, and I just thought, why am I talking to people that are like that? That's the worst part for me, is if you want to kill me having any enthusiasm about anything, it's kill my hope. So I'm trying to get it back. I'll probably be back at some point, but not for now. Not for now.
Fair enough.
Good work.
We look forward to your return one day.
Stay true.
Probably.
And if not, then we'll have you back on the podcast anyway. So.
Yeah, sounds good. I like these. It's pretty easy. And, you know, as much as I have a go at Rick, he's actually reasonably intelligent, and so are you, Macca, so it's always fun.
Thanks.
I know. It's a real compliment.
And if you want
to come back every week if you're going to talk like that. All right, peeps. Until next time. Can't Port Adelaide.
Macca.
Calm the power.
Go Jasper.